Jess, we've been discussing in our last session some myth understandings. We did myth understandings from a seller perspective. Today we're going to go into a few from the buyer perspective, some buyer myths that we hear. But I was curious about that term that you threw out there last week, so I had to ask my handy AI investigation team, and it turns out that no, myth understanding is not a common phrase. It's considered a rare play on words or a neologism, a newly coined term, rather than a widely used idiom or standard English phrase. So it doesn't have any direct, I can't see a citation of where it came from, but we are in the rarefied air of newly coined phrases. So
So it might be
good
me.
for us. We are hip and in the know. It might be you. You might have started it after
We
all.
should just call the podcast Mythunderstandings because there's plenty of stuff I misunderstand every day.
Yeah. All right. So without any further ado, let's jump into some things we hear buyers say or about the buyer process. So let's go into a couple of these. Let's just start with a classic one. A pre-approval and a pre-qualification are the same thing. And I was asking you these to be the first player entering our thoughts on this. Do you want to reverse roles, or do you want to just keep hitting with your opinion first?
I mean, you can hit your opinion
I
first.
get to go first sometimes,
You
right,
want?
Jess?
Yeah, you get to
Um,
go first this time. I
so
should have
it's a
asked you.
myth.
So let me ask you. So, Rich, are pre-quals
Well,
and pre-approval the same thing?
you can't ask the questions, Jess, because you don't prepare the pod. You don't do the prep. So
Whoa, I can't.
you're the
Whoa, you mean I
you're
just
the
can't
on-demand
repeat something
talent.
I heard? Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Um,
Well, we're figuring this out every day.
pre Pre-qual and pre-approval are not the same thing. In fact, they're importantly different, right? So pre-qualification is nice and easy. You can pretty much go into any online banking, portal or service and kind of do a self vetted qualification process. What happens is you log in, you put in your name and all that stuff, and then you can punch in, oh, I make X dollars a year, and there's a few parameters, and within very little,
Mm-hmm.
like actually
Very little.
underwriting, you can get a letter that says that you're pre-qualified for a certain amount of money. Great, but that is not a proper lender looking at the finer details of your income, your expenses, your debt, all of these different things, your employment history, your credit, all of those things. So a self-reported document that results in a pre-qual, it might be enough to get you into the door of a property. It might be enough to prove to an agent that you're somewhat viable as a buyer. But if it comes to the the normalcy of presenting an offer to purchase a home, if you're using a lender to help you finance it, you need a pre-approval, meaning they've actually taken a deep dive into again, those things I just said, so that you are truly a qualified buyer, right? A pre-qual, good enough to maybe scratch the surface and get into a range, but until someone's really looked at your details, it's not a powerful document. Does
Think
that sound
about it
okay?
when, yeah, think about it like when you get junk mail and it says you're pre-qualified for a Visa credit card. That's what that is. They haven't really looked at your stuff yet. They're
Hmm.
just fishing. It's
Hmm.
like that. No?
Yeah, and it matters, right? It matters. So, I would say I don't know if yeah, I shouldn't say that. I think you should get pre-approved if you're seriously ready to buy a home. You should get pre-approved. If you're
Oh,
just
100%.
starting the kind of the process of you know looking at
No.
some, I don't want to
No, don't say that.
give
I think if,
credibility to shopping around. Okay, I'm not
well,
going to
no,
give
I just
credibility to
think
that.
here's the thing. You don't really know what you can spend until you've been pre-approved, until you've actually talked to a lender. They've looked at your credit, they've looked at your stuff, and then they tell you what the interest rate is going to be, and then they tell you what the monthly payment is going to be on a certain amount, on a certain price for a house. Then you know what you can actually afford. So you might think you can afford for 300, but maybe when you actually get into your credit and get to interest rate,
Okay, okay,
then
that's
it
the best
turns out you
advice.
really can only afford a house for 250. Otherwise, the monthly payment is going to be too much for you. Like, don't get yourself in that situation where you've
Don't
made
get
an
your hopes up.
offer. Not don't get your hopes up. Just know exactly what you are approved to spend so that you don't get yourself in a situation where I actually can't buy this house now because I was only pre-qualified and no one talked to me about the actual numbers of what's going to come out of my pocket every month. That's important for you to know. I want you to know
Yep.
that.
Okay. I like that. I like that answer. I'm not gonna push back on that.
You can push
Where did I
back.
go?
Let's go.
How about this one? How about this one, Jess? Property taxes will stay the same after purchase.
Oh, why would they
Oh,
do that?
oh, taxes.
Do do any of your taxes stay the same? Do I mean,
Well, so you
as property value goes up, I mean, there's assessed value that I think that's also a pretty good misunderstanding that your assessed value is your market value or whatever, or the market value on your assessment is actually
that's
market
actually
value.
I think that's on our list, Jess. You're jumping ahead of things.
Oh, sorry. Well, we're on that topic, but no, your taxes will change. They change year to year, and depending on property values and whatnot, and other things going on in your municipalities, your taxes change. I mean, that's the short answer of that.
Yeah, do we want a long answer? I can give you the longer answer. So anyway, as a quick one. So property taxes, there are different categories. You have again New York State. I don't know all states do this way, but we have counties and we have towns and we have villages and we have cities.
Villages and
So depending on and we have schools, right? So you always have a school tax. That's the district that teaches your kids and they get money to pay the teachers and do all the stuff. And then there's usually a county slash town tax. That's your highway crews and all the stuff the town does, town government. And then in our area, if you're in a village, you might have a separate village tax on top of that. Usually when you're in a city, the city tax is kind of combined with that town county bundle. But you can have up to three different tax bills: school, town, and village, which can add up. But yes, in general, those are all. I don't want to spend too much. We should actually do a separate pod on assessments and appraisals and things like that. But in in can I shorten this up to say that the
Your
whole
taxes
point
change.
of taxes, the whole point of taxes is for the entity that's collecting the taxes to pay their budget, right? So they don't want more money than they need. They just need the money to run the system they're running, and they are
Mm,
trying to, in an equitable way, assess all the properties in that township and compare them to each other and say that, if this one is twice as good as this other property, then it should have twice as much tax, right? That's essentially what it is. But assessments don't always keep up with market value. There almost always is there's a concept called equalization rate. We can go into that some other time. But anyway, your taxes, to go back to the actual question, your taxes will change pretty much no matter what, because there's almost always annual increases just because of inflation and the cost of life. But they cannot uh, change your taxes specifically on that property just because it's sold. What has to happen is the township or the village or the county or the school has to do a uniform reassessment up on everyone at the same time. They can't just take one single property that sold for four times more than its assessment price, and they can't just quadruple your taxes. That's not how it works. So there's always a
it's not
fear of that.
nice.
Like if it's assessed for 100K and the market value is 300K, are my taxes going to triple? No, unless they assess the entire town and everyone's properties went up three times. But if that was the case, Jess, then actually everyone's taxes would stay the same because they're all equalized at that three times increase. So it is complicated, and I couldn't answer that super short. But the
Nope.
bottom line is they can't isolate you as a homeowner, as a buyer, and say, "Ooh, we're gonna get you now." They can't do that.
Hmm. There you
Okay.
go.
How about home inspections? A home inspection will catch everything. A home inspection is going to save me from making a mistake.
I mean, I could sell you a bridge. No, so home inspection, there's a really good chance they'll miss something. There's a really good chance that, I mean, not a really good chance, but there's always a chance something can be misdiagnosed. It just depends on your inspector a lot. But it's not a catch-all for sure. It's, I think, almost impossible to know every single thing about a house. I mean, we deal with sellers all the time that we send them questions and they're like, I don't know. Like, what's that light switch do? I have no idea how that's wired. I've been here 6 years and I don't know what that goes to. Like, there's always plenty of stuff that you don't know, and maybe the inspection susses it out. Maybe it really doesn't. There's always going to be a degree of unknown, even after a home inspection, but it'll give you a really good, solid idea of the big things that are going on. I think the inspection is really just for that. What are the big ticket items? Can I afford the upkeep, and the repairs, possible repairs on this house? And is this a smart investment for me?
Great answer. Yes, most home inspectors, well, they're all licensed, but they're not exactly specific professionals in any one like category of things that could go wrong. So a good inspector will point out, of course, all of the things that are wrong. They are, by the way, they are comparing any given house they're inspecting compared to like modern current codes and standards, which is, I think it's a little bit unfair to an older house, but they're holding it to this higher standard, saying this is not how we would do it now, right? Having said all that, there's context to everything, and you want your inspector to point out these bigger ticket items or these things that weren't obvious at first, quote unquote, like visual glance. But what they might not, so they might say, for example, like, oh, there's some issues, there's some potential issues with this foundation, right? And I'm not a foundation expert, but at my inspection, I can tell you that there's some stuff that you might want to contact a professional foundation expert in. So most buyers then have a decision. Do we just say, okay, there's a problem and we either back out, or there's a problem and we'll ask for some kind of credit, possibly. But maybe the perfect pathway for that is, if you're serious about continuing to purchase this house, then you have another level of inspection where you would contact a professional that specializes in that deficiency and can give you a real idea of what this further gets into. So that first home inspection is kind of like the blanket. Is it okay, or are there things to watch out for? And then you almost have to go a second step and be like, okay, the things that I want to watch out for, how serious are they? How soon are they going to be serious? And how much might they cost? And then that kind of informs you. Now, those extra inspections are not free, and so that process adds up. But home inspection will absolutely not save the day, but it should, if the inspector is
Decent.
as ethical as they ought to be and as thorough as they ought to be, then they should be giving you. They can't know everything, but they should be giving you a pretty good idea of what's going
A
on.
pretty good idea. Yeah, and the other thing about that is, like, I think, for buyers that could potentially be first-time buyers, or maybe they're nervous about getting into something, the inspection is really super helpful for them. Just know that, things do cost money. So as long as it's within your budget, to get something fixed, there's always going to be something wrong with every single house. I don't care if it's a brand new build. There could be a crack in the foundation because the house settled. It's a month old, and guess what? That's not built right either. So there is literally going to be something wrong with every single house. It's what you can tolerate. It's also whether or not you feel confident in, yeah, it's also, are you confident in the team of people to call on to get it fixed? Because I'm not going to do my roof. Do I trust my agent to give me a good person, the inspector, or someone in my community to refer me to a good roofer that I can, that's in my price range that can handle this? So I think there's a couple layers. I think when people have something come up on an inspection, something's going to come up on your inspection, and it's going to be okay. Do I have the money for this? Do I have the resources for this? And I'm not the one climbing up on the roof. So I think sometimes people feel it's this huge thing now that has to be dealt with. You're going to make a few phone calls and you're going to write a check, and someone else is actually going to fix it. So I think as long as it's within budget, as long as you have an understanding that you can call on proper resources and proper people, nothing is impossible to fix or correct on a home, unless it's one of the homes I just bought that have to be ripped down.
That inspection report can be lengthy. It can have a lot of scary looking orange and red flags and stuff like that. But I think at the end of the day, I've heard it termed almost like a user's manual for a house, or like a guide for things to fix long term. But I know I've owned a couple houses and I've had inspections on each one, and there's absolutely things that were on that inspection report that are a little bit concerning. But then you kind of move in, and you're like, you know what, the house works, it's livable. Those things sit there and you don't touch them for 3, 4, 5 years, and you're like, whatever, I don't know, that window latch
That's
never
what I
worked,
did.
and guess what, it's fine. Like, life
And I
goes
don't
on.
care.
So
Right.
you got to pick your battles at some point too, and
It's what
but
you
anyway,
can tolerate. Yep. Don't get into anything you can't live with. That's for sure. If you can't live with it, but also know that every house is going to have something. So if you back out of something because there's something, you're going to be backing out of a lot of deals.
Yep, that's a good point. All right, cool. How about you don't need title insurance?
I mean,
And we should say we're in New York State. I have a feeling there's probably state to state differences here. I don't know for
state to
sure,
state
but
differences. I mean, your bank is going to require it.
yeah. So if you have a mortgage,
Um,
your bank is going to
yeah, your
require
bank will
title
require it.
insurance.
So do you need it?
Is
I
it a
mean,
good idea in general? Like, is it what is can you define what title insurance is in a nutshell?
so if somebody has a claim, right? So if there's any kind of lien or someone tries to claim, oh, that was actually my house after you close on something, and they could actually put in a claim and try to fight you for the house that they say is theirs. I believe
Well,
title
let's
insurance is,
unpack that.
yeah,
Sorry, let's unpack that a little bit. So, because let's take someone that doesn't understand a lot of real estate, because there's a lot of terms with title. There's a title company that is a independent organization, and they kind of research the passing of the title from owner to owner to owner over time, and they go to the county records offices and they pull up all the ownership, and they see if there's anything that got kind of like you said, liens or other things that can impact the we call it like clean
ownership.
title.
Yeah,
You
right.
want you want unencumbered ownership without anyone else with a weird claim or a weird, property boundary transgression or anything happening. So a title company, in essence, is hired to create an abstract of title, which is kind of that history, and then buyer purchases that document. This is their proof essentially of clean title. But the title company on some level has to recognize we're not perfect. We might have had a bad day. We might have missed a record. We might have missed something. And we're confident in our ability to provide this service, but we're not 100% flawless. And we're going to insure your title, meaning that if we messed up, that's on us. We were supposed to research it. We didn't. We screwed up. So that person who then claims, something, will take care of it. That's not on
We'll take
you,
care of it.
buyer. And so that's the idea of title insurance. They're insuring their product.
And because your bank requires it, because they want to protect their asset, they want to protect their interest. I sort of feel like you should want to do that too. I do also believe it's really low cost. I think the last closing I was at is so funny. It was like my first in-person closing since COVID. But we actually talked about this at length, and it was like $318. And
Yeah.
it covers your title for for the length of you
Yeah.
owning it and probably beyond. But it does cover your title. Why not? For very low cost, like in the off chance, it's not something that happens really at all. However, if you're one of those people that likes to bring into existence, this only happens to me. Go ahead and pay your $318 and or whatever it costs. It's probably different.
And it's a
Um,
one-time fee, Jess. It's not even like a
yeah,
recurring thing. It's one time upfront, then you're covered forever. So in the
I mean,
grand
I would
scheme of
say
a
yes.
home purchase, it is pretty much a no-brainer, and almost everyone I know does it. But yeah, I mean, you don't unless you're using a lender, I don't think it's a requirement. It's just a
No,
really
I
good
don't think you
idea.
have to have it.
And when
Right.
you yeah,
It's the same thing as flood insurance. You
but
don't have to have flood insurance. Your bank is going to require flood insurance, but you should have flood
mhm,
insurance. Because if
mhm.
I just look at it like
because
this, if the bank requires
because
it, it
the
means
place
it's
floods.
probably correct. It's probably a good idea if you do it because the bank is going to just protect their asset in every way they can.
Yeah,
Shouldn't you treat it as importantly as a bank would? Yeah, I'm going to
yeah,
do all the things a bank does.
yeah. I thought I had something else I was going to add, but now my cat is up on my desk. Um,
Yeah. Well, we can
Okay,
add a cat.
last one for this set of five buyer myths. Appraisals equal market value. And we could
Oh,
almost go into an assessment versus appraisal conversation, but does appraisal equal market value?
oh my gosh. It's damn near close, but no, because sometimes the market will bear more than the house is kind of worth on paper, right? So you have like, especially like, think about a bidding war, just as an example. There's an emotional number now that we're assigning to this property that probably doesn't exist on paper. So the appraisal is really, papers, dollars and cents, statistics, comps, and it's really limited to what that specific appraiser, who's also licensed and is also insured because they could also make mistakes. It's their opinion of value. Is it market? Well, a buyer may actually have a different opinion. They may be willing to pay $50,000 more for that house because that's the emotional layer to it. So is it market? I think you have to defend what market is. Market to me is what the market will bear, what a buyer is willing to pay. Could be very different than what what a house actually appraises for. Would be my opinion
Again,
on that.
Jess, you're so. This is why we do this. You're so
Ooh,
good at
I
explaining
nailed
things.
it. Damn.
Yeah. So again, I'm the one that then backs up and like defines terms. But just an appraisal is a third party, an independent opinion of value based on from a licensed appraiser. And their job is to look at the comparable properties that are the most similar in location, size, type, all these other features to the subject property, the thing being sold or bought. And their job is to then look at those similar properties and make adjustments such that the comps are essentially clones of the subject property, the thing we're talking about. And if then once you run all those adjustments, you end up with a number, and that is the appraisal value of the property based on real, tangible, real world known market values of other properties. The trick is it's a human, it's an opinion, they're making adjustments. As much as they try to make it objective, there is always subjectivity, and they might have a good day, a bad day, they might miss something, like things happen.
Yep.
So
Oh, I've had them miss
it's
things, and I've
supposed
shoved
to
it
be
under their
market
nose.
value. It's supposed to be market value. Yeah, no, I had one last year there where the back of this property had like this beautiful 400 feet of river frontage, right? Gorgeous river frontage, but the appraiser somehow just didn't look at the maps or certainly not walk down the back of the property to see it, even though it was clearly marketed in the listing as like a feature, but they didn't account for that at all. And so I had to defend
Put
this
it back
property
under their
value
nose.
for this
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
No, I've
But
definitely had
it's
idiot
meant to
appraisals.
be market value, but it's not perfect.
Yeah, no, it's never, again, market value. If I were to define market value, it's literally what a buyer is willing to pay for it. So
And then
there's that.
that's it on appraisal. And by the way, you can have an appraisal that isn't so a bank will order an appraisal. Again, that's not they're professional. They have to hire a third party. There are laws that prevent them from just using the same appraiser again and again
Hmm.
and again. But they're trying to protect their assets, so they're supposed to have an independent view of that. And also, you can hire an appraiser without selling something. I could
Hmm.
hire an appraiser right now to appraise my home if I wanted to, and just so I know. And again, now real estate agents can come up with market analyses, and we offer these things all the time to potential, to our consumers, our customers,
It's always an
our
opinion.
clients, and we're trying our best.
Yep.
We don't follow the same exact format as a proper appraisal. Appraisal is a pretty laborious project, and credit to them. It's a little bit redundant. You have to really be. I mean, I'm a data guy, Jess. I don't know if I would want to be an appraiser. It is pretty
No, it
tedious
sounds
stuff.
grueling. Well, also,
But
I want to say something about. So I know sometimes sellers will say, like, I'm going to get an actual appraisal, which they should. It's their right to do before I list, so I know what my house is worth. And again, like we're saying, an appraisal doesn't necessarily reflect market. So for example, your house appraises for 265. We put it out on the market. Say we'll put it up for 279, and you get crickets, and the highest offer you get is 220. I'm just telling you that's what the market will bear. So I just wanted to say that because there's plenty of reality checks and scenarios and things that happen what the market will bear. Maybe the market doesn't value that home as much as the appraisal did, as the dollars and the numbers, right? It's just numbers, but don't forget it's really comes down to what a buyer, just like you want more than what it appraised for. Yeah, well that's what the market will bear. So just keep in mind that it doesn't mean that you should get that. It's what the market will bear. It's again another opinion. And I've had people die by that number. Well, it said 265, so I'm only taking 265. Well, the market may not bear that, and you're going to be sitting in your house a long time. And it sounds
Yeah.
harsh, but our job is to be honest and to be realistic with people. I'm never going to lie to somebody or misrepresent something. So just know that too, because that has happened. I've seen that happen too.
Yeah. And just to wrap this little session up. So again, I was the vocab guy on this lesson, but this like pod,
You're
but
always the
there
vocab guy.
there there is, so we used in this little session, we talked about assessment. That was for the taxes. That is also an assessment of value that's done by your town or your county's assessor. Their job is essentially the same, but they're not doing remotely the same kind of appraisal. They're not going into your house generally. They're just taking kind of a big picture look at, like, okay, lot size, age of home, exterior features. They might look at some satellite imagery, but they're not doing a deep dive. So that's nowhere near as they don't have the chance to be nearly as accurate because they're generalizing. But a lot of people will see their tax bills and they'll see their assessment. And then on top of that, there's this equalization rate we talked about. So assessments are just typically the least market value relevant number, even though it's what you see on your taxes, so you think it must be accurate in some sense. An appraisal is
It's
going to be
not.
much closer, and is certainly the most like studious of ways to do it. And then the agent is maybe somewhere in the middle where we're not held to any like actual protocol, even though we should be. But we are trying our best to do a true market analysis, and that's in the sense of we've probably seen the house, we've been in it, we've walked around with you, we've talked with you, and we're trying to help you understand value. So we're like better than assessment. We're probably not as technical as an appraisal, but we're trying to do the same thing as get you
Well, that's a really
our
good
market opinion.
that's a really good point because I've had people call me and say, "Can you come give me the appraisal?"
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I actually can't do that. So some sellers do think that we can do appraisals. We
Right.
cannot do, we're not licensed to do appraisals. We can give you an opinion on market value based on what we see as sold and what's in contract, and maybe even what you're competing with we'll take into account. We are not appraisers. So I cannot give you the appraisal. I
Yeah.
can give you my opinion.
I can give you a market
So just know,
analysis.
yeah, we can analyze the market and then give you that number. Those are great. These are
Yeah,
fun.
those were good. Bring on, yeah, if you're listening, if you have comments, thoughts, criticisms, let us know. We welcome feedback.
We
Give
don't
us
want
your
criticisms.
myth under. Yeah, we want criticisms. We want to
No, no,
improve. Don't you want to grow,
no.
Jess?
It's all about love. Just we want love.
Or shrivel
I'll,
in
I'll
despair?
take curl up and cry in the corner. No, I think no, we definitely want comments. We'll take them all, whatever it is. Thank you for listening.
Thanks again for checking out the Living You podcast. As always, thanks Jess for hanging out, and we'll check you next time.
Absolutely.